this truth into myself as well. But I think it's absolutely critically important that you focus. You have to come up with one focus. And then once you have that focus, you've got to really, really dig in. So same thing with traffic sources. If you're not already making $100,000 a year, you have no business trying to juggle 5 different traffic sources. Any one of the basic traffic sources will make you $100,000. Facebook, you can make $100,000 on Facebook traffic. You can make $100,000 on LinkedIn traffic. You can make $100,000 on school traffic. You can make $100,000 on Twitter traffic. You can make $100,000. I was going to say medium traffic. That might be hard to do from scratch, but you get the idea. Okay. You can make a full-time living from one source of traffic. Okay. Now, one concentration of traffic. Now, does that not mean that when you have that one source of traffic that you might do something incremental from other sources of traffic to bring traffic to that one location? Absolutely, you can do that. Okay. But if you try to manage 5 traffic sources, you're going to do each one mediocre. When I did eZine articles, I did one traffic source for like 3 or 4 years. One traffic source. I got very good at it. If I'd have been doing 4 other traffic sources at the same time, would I have gotten as good? No, absolutely not. Why? Because I spent like 30 hours a week getting better at eZine articles. If I'd only spent 7.5 hours a week getting better at eZine articles, how good would I have ever gotten? You know, I think a lot of times people look at what I did at eZine articles, they go, well, you have 25,000 articles and you paid, some people to write 23,500 of them. How hard is that? What you don't see is that the hours and hours and hours that we spent tweaking the actual topics, determining what topic is 23,000 articles going to be. And I'm not just talking about using AI to spit out 100 topics. I'm talking about we would go back into the data and we would analyze 1,000 articles and say, this topic made us this many subscribers. This topic made us this many subscribers. This topic made us this many. So I was able to become an expert at that traffic. When I went into the Warrior Forum, I became an expert. All I did was Warrior Forum for 3 or 4 years, whatever the time frame was. So therefore, I became an expert at that one thing. If I'd have done 5 other traffic sources at the same time, I wouldn't have been able to be that expert. Okay. And the same thing right now. And I think it's even more important than it was then. In fact, I'm just going to be honest with you. Okay. I've been scattered the last few years. And those of you who follow me, you know that I've been scattered the last few years. The truth of the matter is, I haven't been focused like I was at eZine articles, and I haven't been focused like I was at Warrior Forum. That's the difference. And here's the thing, I'm speaking this into me. Now, my responsibility here, you're paying to be here. My responsibility here is to speak into you. I know from my experience that if you will find one traffic source and become an absolute expert, and you will have one topic in your business, and you will have one way to monetize that, and you will just go absolutely all in, that's the kind of thing God can bless 100-fold return like he did Isaac. Okay. And I'm going to look you guys in the eye right now and just tell you that if you try to flirt, how many of you like playing with fire? How many of you like it when your children play with fire? Like, I know you're tough and everything, but how about your children? Well, God is God. And if you're going to play with fire this year, how does God feel about that? Like, I don't know. You got to ask God. God, hey, God, do you want me playing with fire this year? Or do you want me to just have a rock solid plan? Now, I don't want to be God to you. I'm no prophet, okay? And tell you, God's telling you not to play with fire. But I want you to go to God and say, look, you want me playing with fire this year? And if God says, no, actually, I want you to be like pretty focused, then that backs up what I'm giving you right now. I really believe this is for somebody here today, if not every one of you looking me in the eyes right now, that you've got to become ultra, ultra, ultra focused. So I want to talk about topic number 2 now, as it comes down to being ultra focused. How many of you love the work that you do, but you desperately need it to make you a living by the end of this year? Okay. Now, sometimes when I'm on these big calls with different clients than I'm on right now, I tiptoe around this next thing because, you know, some people just want to make a gardening site and they just want to have a cute gardening site to share with all their friends. And if they just make an extra $100 a week for lunch, they're going to be happy. And I try to cater to those kind of people. Like, I'm being kind of tough with you because I know who's here. All right. I know I can speak freely right now. And for those of you listening to the recording and you get your feelings hurt, you weren't here. Okay. I'm just speaking to those that are live right now. So when I'm on a big call and, you know, somebody wants to make $100 lunch money on a gardening website, cool. Make lunch money on a gardening website. I will support that if you want. But how many of you need to do more than $100 in lunch money? You want me to speak into more than $100 in lunch money right now? Like, you want me to really speak in? You want to make a full-time living? I'm going to tell you the truth. So number one, you got to have God's blessing. God's got to fight your battle. You got to obey the word, all the things we talked about, and focus. But let me tell you this. If you don't do what I'm going to give you next, it is highly unlikely that you'll have a full-time business this year. This is highly unlikely. You absolutely must choose a business model where you can see the money and you can see clients paying for whatever it is in enough volume to make you the money that you need. You can't go through this year hoping that you will come up with a price point that you hope people will buy for some training that you hope they'll buy. Like, you really need to go into the market and say, what are other people buying? What's the price? What's my price? How am I going to drive enough traffic? Like, you really need to go in and make yourself a serious blueprint that says, I need to get 5,000 visitors a month and 500 of those people need to pay me $20 a month. Or I need to get 5,000 buyers and I need to get 5,000 visitors and 10 of them need to spend $1,000 every single month. Okay. Or whatever that is. If you don't, I'm going to make another prediction here. I don't want to call this more than that. All right. This is in the natural, folks. All right. But I want you to take it to God. If you don't focus on the money, you won't make the money. The market has gotten tough. And as the economy turns, it's going to get tougher. I don't want to get too much in the economy right now, but there are some fake smoke signals right now in the market. The inflation gives us the appearance of growth. But the truth of the matter is, what I'm seeing in the real world online is people are tightening up. If people are tightening up, what do you need to do? You need to have a rock solid plan that says people are going to be willing to pay this much and I'm going to get this many people. Look, if you fall down on getting enough traffic, you will not hit your goal this year. If I don't get enough traffic, I won't hit my goal. How many of you have seen me driving a lot of traffic lately? You see me doubling down on a few different things. Why? I'm not doing it for my health. Okay. If I wanted to do it for my health, I would eat more broccoli, right? I would have more carrots if I wanted to improve my health. And tell you what I want to do this year is I want to improve my financial state. Where does that start? It starts with traffic. If you're not driving enough traffic, you don't have a business. If you don't have an offer, if you don't have an audience, and if you don't have something to sell, you don't have a business. And I just want to speak into you right now. And I want to say that if you're missing any of those things, I don't want you to cry over spilt milk. I don't want you to be mad at me. Okay. I don't want you to be regretful and mad at yourself. But I want you to give yourself like 15 days to come up with all of it. Because if you don't, there's 8 months left in the year. This year is going fast. And if you don't double down and get that traffic coming in now and start converting it, start having audience with people, finding out what they need, make an offer and start selling. And if you don't start now, you're not going to hit your goal by the end of the year. And I'm not trying to be a doomsdayer. I'm not trying to be negative. I just feel led today to push into you and push into what's going on. All right, that's it for me. All right, I'm going to open up. I want to take any comments or questions. Feel free to use the chat or feel free to speak up. Either way, comments, questions. I'm going to unmute the lines Well, I won't, but you'll have the ability there to unmute or just pop it into the chat. Dog chasing two birds. You haven't catched either one of them. You got to stop chasing two birds. You never will. You'll never catch two birds. It's easy to look at the gurus and say, well, they're chasing three birds. Well, they have a team of 20 people. So they're able to call one guy in the morning and say, look, we got a choice. All right. Our business doesn't need you anymore. I can either fire you or I can give you a new project over there. So he's like, oh, I don't want to get fired. I'll go do the new project. Well, the new project gets stamped with the guru's name. So at the end of the year, it looks like he's got three businesses. Okay. Or you look at some businesses, there's some people out there that they run 40 businesses. Oh, wait a second. They don't actually run 40 businesses, do they? No, they have 40 managers that run the businesses. All they do when they're running their 40 businesses is jot notes down. So the next time that they have a Zoom meeting, they're like, yeah, Charles, you take care of this. You figure this out. Here's an idea. Harry, you go figure this out. Sean, you go figure this out. Randy, you go figure this out. They're not running 40 businesses. You can't compare yourself running one business to somebody that has 40 businesses and has 40 CEOs or 40 managers. You can't compare. You can't do it. You're going to be like a 21-year-old pipsqueak, comparing himself to somebody that is got 4 kids and problems and 4 businesses, and trying to speak into the 50-year-old person that's got all of those challenges and trying to give him some kind of advice. Okay. There's not very much advice is going to come from the 21-year-old pipsqueak to this experienced person that's running through challenges. I'm not saying that we can't humbly listen to advice from somebody that hasn't been there, but usually if you haven't walked in somebody's shoes, you can't really speak much into their situation. Okay. And so you have to be really careful. Don't compare yourself to the wrong people because you are not somebody with 40 businesses. You only have room for one. Any other comments? I feel like I've scared everybody away today. Okay. I don't want to scare anybody away today. So, Charles, are you ready to hop in?
Yes, sir.
Okay, awesome. I'm really, really excited about having you here with us today. And I asked Sean I asked Charles, forgive me. My name's Sean, and Sean's here, and I got Sean on my mind. I asked Charles if he would share today because I really feel like he can add to this conversation in a way that I can't. One of the things that is becoming more and more real to me over the years, I'm kind of, 5 years ago in my business, I was kind of like that 21-year-old pipsqueak, right? I had mastered a couple of things. I had gotten very good at what I did on eZine articles. Some would say I was #1 in the world. Some would say I was #2 or #3 in the world. Okay. And it just obviously depends on how you rate things. On Warrior Forum, I think at one time somebody told me I was a #3 producer. I mean, I've never seen a leaderboard that showed that. All right. And so I don't know if that's true or not. But I know that we did an incredible amount of volume over there, and I was absolutely laser focused. And so because of that, I knew a lot of stuff. And so I was able to pour that stuff in other people. But I overrated how much my stuff was worth in all of the other places and pieces. And so one of the things that I've learned over the last couple of years is that I only have like 1/1000th of all the business wisdom out there. And Sean, you have another 1/1000th of it. And Randy, you have another 1,000th. And Harry, you have another 1,000th. And Charles, he has 2,000ths. And so that's why I've got Charles here today. Charles, I'm just so very, very glad to have you here. Charles Merkel, the man himself. I'm just going to let you jump right into the training. And if you want to do a little bit of introduction, more than happy. But I'm going to turn things over to you, man.
Absolutely, Sean. And if failure is a teacher, I've been at the head of the class. So
there you go.
And I want everybody else here to know that Sean and I didn't coordinate on this. He just asked me to come up with something. But this shows that God is involved in everything we do, because what was laid upon my heart, what's been going through my mind recently, and this is as much for me as it is for you, getting these thoughts in alignment. But this goes hand in hand with what Sean was just talking about not, about choosing one goal, one path, one method. and then going all in. And the very first verse that came to mind while preparing for today, and it wasn't a long preparation, so I had short notice, and then getting the family fed and things like that. But what came to mind was King Solomon in Ecclesiastes 9, verse 10. This is out of the New International Version. It says, "Whatever your hands find to do," that's whatever, that's open. "Whatever your hands find to do it with all your might. For in the realm of the dead, where you are going, there is neither working, nor planning, nor knowledge, nor wisdom." That verse right there should light a fire under our butts. We're all heading towards the grave. We don't know when, we don't know how, but at some point, unless Jesus comes back while we're still living, that's where we're going. And the work that is before us now, it's going to be somebody else's work. So if we want the rewards for our toil, we got to get busy. We got to get focused today. And that's whatever our hands find to do. I don't care if that's God blesses you with a fishing trip this coming Saturday, or uh, something recreational, or you've got a mother of a problem that you don't know what you're going to do, and it's just bringing you to your knees. But whatever it is, whatever our two hands find to do it with all your might. Go all in. We don't want to, forgive the language, we don't want to half-ass anything. It's because God's given us his best, and he deserves our best in return. And those who are counting on us deserve our very, very best. Next verse came from Jesus. And this was Luke chapter 9, again out of the NIV. Jesus was walking along with his disciples, and people were approaching him and with different statements, and Jesus was responding in different ways. But the last one really caught my eye. Somebody that came up, we don't know anything about this person, but they come up to Jesus, it says, "Still another said, 'I will follow you, Lord.'" He's saying, "I will follow you. But first, let me go back and say goodbye to my family. But first, let me go back. I have something to do before I follow you." Jesus replied, "No one who puts a hand to the plow and looks back," doesn't say just go back, looks back, "is fit for service in the kingdom of God." Now, we're all here as worthy warriors. By our namesake, we're saying we're here for the glory and the kingdom and the service of God. But I can't speak for you. I know for myself, many, many, many times I've put my hand to the plow and not only looked back, I went back because there was something else I felt was more important, something left undone. Something took me away from the work that was before me. And like Sean's been saying, we don't have the time. We don't have the opportunity to do that. If we're going to get the results we want this year, we have to put our hand to the plow, and we cannot look back. Whatever it is behind us, leave it there. Leave it there. And next verse is Hebrews chapter 12. And this was right after or chapter 11, which was, it's the Hall of Faith, is called in some circles, all of the examples of people who walked in incredible faith before God and then accomplished great things because they stayed in the faith. So what is being said here? Therefore, again out of the NIV, Since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles. We're being told to do two things right there. I know when I've heard past teachings on the scripture, the focus is on the sin that so easily entangles. And we do need to be aware of that, conscious of it. But that first commandment, I don't remember anybody ever teaching on that. Let us throw off everything that hinders. That's outside of sin. What is it that's holding us back? What is it we're holding on to that is keeping us from joining this great cloud of witnesses? So I'm going to read that again just so I can get the full context. Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles. And let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of faith. For the joy set before him, he endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. Consider him who endured such opposition from sinners, so that you will not grow weary and lose heart. That phrase in there, who for the joy set before him, he endured the cross. I've heard so many marketing messages selling the good life, a life of plenty, a life of ease. Set up this business, put up this page, push these 3 buttons. Money's going to come in your account. You can buy your Lambo, you can go on your cruises, you can eat the good food and have a life of leisure. But that's not what Jesus promised. That's not the example he set. The cross, if you've watched The Passion of the Christ, that's the visual that I've seen come closest, even though it didn't come close enough to what Jesus actually endured on the cross. He didn't look for the cross. He didn't look forward to it. What he looked forward to was after. The cross was just something he had to endure. But because of the joy of what he was going to receive, he endured the cross, scorning its shame. And after that, sat down at the right hand of the throne of God, took his rightful place. We have a rightful place for us. We are kingdom bound. We are kingdom children. This is so don't be looking, it's okay to enjoy good things. I don't want to come across that we have to, it's always going to be a strenuous life and there won't be any good thing to enjoy in this. That's not what I'm saying. But whatever it is that we are called to do, the race that marked out for us, I believe each one of us does. And we have to know what that end goal is. What is it we're striving for? And then be willing to endure, prepare ourselves to endure whatever we have to reach that end goal for ourselves, for our God, for our family, for those in society we're going to be able to directly help. And I wanted to give you an example. I know we get a lot of the Bible, but this is an incredible example. I'm sure you've heard of Napoleon Hill. This comes out of the 1925 Laws of Success. This is what Russell Brunson bought the original manuscript for 1.5 million. So the book is off the market. If you want to find one now, you can. I see used copies going for a few hundred, but But this is Napoleon Hill here. And I just want to read one of his examples from my studies of him. I don't know if he was a Christian. He was a man of faith. He did believe in a higher power, but he was also deeply practical. And so this is his story. It says, a few months ago, I was invited to speak before the inmates of the Ohio Penitentiary. When I stepped upon the platform, I saw in the audience before me a man whom I had known as a successful businessman more than 10 years ago. That man was Butler R. Stork, whose pardon I have just secured, and the story of whose release has been spread upon the front page of practically every newspaper in the United States. This was something he already did. He's writing this after the fact. Perhaps you will recall it. After I had completed my address, I interviewed Mr. Stork and found out that he had been sentenced for forgery for a period of 20 years. After he had told me his story, I said, quote, I will have you out of here in less than 60 days, end quote. With a forced smile, he replied, I admire your spirit, but question your judgment. Why, do you know that at least 20 influential men have tried every means at their command to get me released without success? It can't be done. This is Hill speaking. I suppose it was that last remark, it can't be done, that challenged me to show him that it could be done. I returned to New York City and requested my wife to pack her trunks and get ready for an indefinite stay in the city of Columbus, where the Ohio Penitentiary is located. I had a definite purpose in mind. That purpose was to get Stork out of the Ohio Penitentiary. Not only did I have in mind securing his release, but I intended to do it in such a way that his release would erase from his breast the scarlet letter of convict, and at the same time reflect credit upon all who helped to bring about his release. Not once did I doubt that I would bring about his release, for no salesman can make a sale if he doubts that he can do it. He's talking about faith. My wife and I returned to Columbus and took up permanent headquarters. The next day, I called on the governor of Ohio and stated the object of my visit in about these words. Governor, I have come to ask you to release Stork from the Ohio Penitentiary. I have a sound reason for asking his release, and I hope you will give him the freedom at once. And I hope you will give him his freedom at once. But I have come prepared to stay until he is released, no matter how long that may be. During his imprisonment, Stork has inaugurated a system of correspondence instruction in the Ohio Penitentiary. As you, of course, know, he has influenced 1,729 of the 2,518 prisoners of the Ohio Penitentiary to take up courses of instruction. He has managed to beg sufficient textbooks and lesson materials with which to keep these men at work on their lessons, and has done this without a penny of expense to the state of Ohio. The warden and the chaplain of the penitentiary tell me that he has carefully observed the prison rules. Surely a man who can influence 1,729 men to turn their efforts toward self-betterment cannot be a very bad sort of fellow. I have come to ask you to release Stork because I wish to place him at the head of a prison school that will give the 160,000 inmates of the other penitentiaries of the United States a chance to profit by his influence. I am prepared to assume full responsibility for his conduct after his release. That is my case. But before you give me your answer, I want you to know that I am not unmindful of the fact that your enemies will probably criticize you if you release him. In fact, if you release him, it may cost you many votes if you run for office again. With his fist clenched and his broad jaw set firmly, the governor of Ohio said, if that is what you want with Stork, I will release him if it costs me 5,000 votes. However, before I sign the pardon, I want you to see the clemency board and secure its favorable recommendation. I want you also to secure the favorable recommendation of the warden and the chaplain of the Ohio Penitentiary. You know a governor is amenable to the court of public opinion, and these gentlemen are the representatives of that court. The sale had been made, and the whole transaction had required less than 5 minutes. I'm going to stop there. So this was the man who wrote Think and Grow Rich. So you can see here, he wasn't a man of just theory. He wasn't a man of the classroom. He was a man of action. And he had a purpose. He had something specific he wanted to accomplish. But in alignment with the verses we've already covered and with what Sean covered today, notice how he started out. He asked his wife to pack her trunks and get ready for an indefinite stay in the city of Columbus. And then he took up permanent residence. He prepared himself to see it all the way through, no matter what it took or how long it took. He was prepared. He prepared himself mentally as well as in the natural realm to see something all the way through. It only took him 5 minutes. And we can have those kind of results when we apply ourselves all in. When we go all in, nothing else left on the table. But we also need to prepare ourselves if it doesn't happen right away. Are we going to endure? As Jesus did, endured the cross because for the joy set before him. What is it we're looking for on the other side? That's what we need to keep in front of our eyes. Yes, we have to pay attention to our problems. Yes, we're going to have to endure struggles and use our imagination and expand our resources to get over, around, through them. But there's something we want on the other side. There has to be. Otherwise, we're not going to go the full distance. So that is applied faith. Faith that keeps us alive is knowing whatever it is on the other side, we're going to have it. We're going to get it. But we have to work within the time we have, which means we need to get started today. We need to put our hand on the plow, work with all of our might, and go out and just get done what we need to get done. And while I was reading this, this may be for somebody here. Maybe you've felt that reading about the story of Stork, you felt something there. Maybe that was correlating with your own story. Because he did do something wrong, but he paid the price. He paid his debt to society. And he turned that around by positively influencing those he was with, and that was the people of the penitentiary. He earned himself a good name. Whether it's us here of the Worthy Warriors, if it's Jesus reaching down his hand to lift you up, I want you to know your name's been cleared. You did your due. And it's time to get up, get out of the mental prison of your mind. Breathe fresh air again. See the sunshine again. Because there's a greater work you've been called to do, and you can't do it where you're at. So that was just something I felt I needed to share. I thank you all. I hope you've been blessed as much as I've been blessed by this, and I want to turn it back over to you, Sean.
Charles, wow. Thank you so very, very much. I want to confirm for everybody that, and Sean's reading Thank you, Charles. What I needed to hear. So that's really good.
Mhm.
So here's the thing. I asked Charles if he would share today, and I had no idea what he was going to share. And I don't know if our emails got crossed or I just didn't look or what, but I had no idea what he was going to share. And I did not know what I was going to share until 5 minutes before I started. Like I had in a faint back of my mind, I had kind of the topic, but I had some ideas, but I did not know what it was going to look like. And so I really believe that out of 100 things I could have talked about and 100 things that Charles could have talked about, there's like a 1 in 10,000 chance that we would talk about almost exactly the same thing. So wow, that's absolutely amazing. So thank you very much, Charles. You said it in ways that I couldn't, and that's why it's so wonderful to have these different perspectives. Folks, one of the things that Charles really dug into that I did not is this idea of this definite goal and being fixed on it and having great definiteness of purpose in getting there. And so if you focused on the process that I gave you, so I said, look, choose a traffic source and have a vision for how much you're going to charge and figure out how many people and focus only on one thing. So everything I gave you was kind of procedural. What Charles gave you is the big picture. He's like, look, you got to have a goal, you got to have definiteness of purpose, and you've got to be willing to go all of the way. Look, if you will take what I gave you and you'll take what Charles gave you, you practically have an entire instruction manual with God's help, with God's power, with God fighting for you. You have an entire instructional manual for whatever it is that you want to accomplish